And the first thing I would like to thank Changhua Fashi, Venerable Changhua, for inviting me to give a talk today here at CMC, but also to Mr. Yao and all other who were organizing this event. So I have to say that coming to CMC is thank you so much. Coming to CMC is very important thing to me, you know, because this is the place I met Master Sheng Yen. It was 1896, I think. Then I came here for the first 7-day retreat. And also that was 30 years ago, I think so, or almost 30 years ago. And also this is a place where I met a lot of my Dharma friends. And for all these reasons, I consider this place to be very important for myself. Although it is not the same place, but it is the same institution. So I'm very happy to be here today with all of you for all these reasons, and I'm also happy to be able to share my understanding, experience of silent illumination and practice in daily life. So the topic of this talk is silent illumination and application of the method in daily life. But I don't know how much you know about silent illumination, how many of you are actually using the methods of practice. So for that reason, if you agree, I will try to say first a little bit about silent illumination. And then I will proceed to application of its principle in daily life. Okay, so first of all, when we are talking about the methods of practice in Chan, there are quite a number of methods which we use, and also some methods which we are not using, but it's possible to use them. So there is a number of methods in Chan, but among all of them, the two methods are considered to be really exceptional, and that is silent illumination, Mozao, and Huato. So these two methods are considered to be the most advanced methods in Chan tradition. And silent illumination is especially advanced method, actually is the most advanced method of Chan. The one thing which is, I think, necessary to understand when we are talking about methods in general is that the simpler the method is, the most advanced it is. Okay, so among all those methods, silent illumination is the simplest of them all, and therefore it is the most advanced method. The very name of the method, silent illumination, is coming to us from the poem of the same name, written by Master Hongzhi in 12th century, and actually he wrote a great number of poems, and in many of them he is describing in a very poetic ways the experience of silent illumination. How that experience looks like. He is using the metaphors of nature, the mountains and the clouds and the lakes and the rivers and moonlight, in order to tell us that silent illumination is a very natural state of mind, which is reached effortlessly, and his poems in that sense are very instructive and inspirational, but also sometimes very difficult to understand. And if you came across those poems, I'm sure you struggle with understanding of some of them. Okay, so this is where the name comes. This is where the names of silent illumination is coming from. The method itself is called very often the methodless method. And that's something which is very characteristic of silent illumination. Why it is called methodless method? Because silence and illumination is considered to be the very nature of our mind. Silence illumination is that natural state of our mind. If we can reach the most natural state of our mind, that would be the silence and illumination. And for that reason, we actually don't consider silent illumination to be a proper method. So it's not a method in a classical term of that word, classical sense of that word, because in the practice of silent illumination, we are mostly allowing our true nature to manifest. Therefore, it's not about doing something, but it's more about simply allowing that nature to manifest. So that's theoretically like that. But in actual practice, we still have to do something. But that relates to letting go of whatever obscures actually that true nature. Okay? And when we think about what is it that obscures our true nature, then of course it is our habitual tendencies, it is mental afflictions, it is this conceptual and discriminative mind of ours, which is running constantly between the past, present, and future, creating troubles for ours and others as well. So this is what actually obscures the true nature of our mind. And therefore, in the practice of silent illumination, we are simply letting go of this veil, if I can call it so, which covers our true nature. And as for the origin of the method, I said earlier that the name comes from Master Hongzhi, but the origin of practice goes all the way back to the Buddha himself. And it is based on two main aspects of all Buddhist methods of meditation. And that is shamatha and vipassana. That is calming the mind and developing insight. Okay, so these are like two basic aspects of Buddhist meditation in general. As shamatha is something which is shared by all other spiritual traditions beside Buddhism, the vipassana or developing insight is actually exclusively Buddhist practice which Buddha discovered and by which or through which he actually experienced awakening. So calming on the one hand and insight on the other is the origin of silent illumination. But in the same time, silent illumination is not the same as shamatha and vipassana. There are differences between them. First of all, shamatha and vipassana are real methods, approach gradually. Okay, and silent illumination is not. Silent illumination, as I said earlier, is not a really method, and it is rooted in a sudden awakening of Chan tradition. So that's the one difference between them. But also, not going into detail of this because that would make this talk quite complex, and I don't want to do that. As a difference from shamatha and vipassana, silent illumination is also kind of an objectless meditation. There is no specific objects of our concentration or objects on which we place our mind in our practice, okay? And also very important characteristic of silent illumination is that it is formless method, okay? Formless method, which means that it can be applied everywhere, okay? As it does not have a specific form, like example, mindfulness of the breath or counting the breath or any of those other methods. We can't use them everywhere. You know, you can't go across the street counting your breaths because, you know, that could be very dangerous, you know, because we wouldn't be aware of what is around us. Silent illumination in that respect is formless, and it can be applied everywhere and at all times, in all situations. So let us see now what is actually silence and illumination, and how we really apply this, how we use this method. First of all, silence, what silence really means is that then our mind meets the objects of our senses. Okay, when our mind meets the objects of our senses, when we see something, when we hear something, when we touch something, silence means that in contacting the objects of our senses, our mind remains silent. So it means it's not conditioned by what we see, it's not conditioned by what we hear or what we touch or what we experience in general. Okay, so whatever appears in our mind, our body, or in our environment, and we become aware of, our mind is not conditioned by that. That means silence. Not being moved by whatever appears in our mind. So that's the meaning of silence. Illumination, in the same time, is a total clarity, brightness, and awareness of whatever we are facing, or of whatever we are not reacting to. All right? So not being those phenomena by which we are not conditioned, we know very clearly when they appear, right? Because if we have just a silence, you know, we could we could isolate ourselves from all phenomena. You know, our mind could be one pointed on something, forgetting about everything else, and we will be in silence. Okay, we will be in silence by doing that. That's how concentration is developed. Okay, but that is the silence without illumination. Okay, we simply exclude ourselves. We simply separate ourselves from the world, and we find this quite nice place in which we are not bothered by anything. Okay, but that's not sustainable, if I can say so. You know, because we have to live, we have to move, we have to work, we have to interact with people, and therefore that peace which we can achieve in that state is not really workable in our everyday life and everyday situations. So here we have a difference in silent illumination, because we don't have a one object and we don't separate ourselves. As I said earlier, contacting any object of our senses, we remain calm, we remain silent, we remain unaffected, unconditioned, not moved by. So that's the meaning of silence. In the same time, being clearly aware of whatever phenomena we are facing. Okay, so that's the meaning of silence on one hand, and that's the meaning of illumination on the other. But there is a very interesting thing which actually happens when our mind is so silent and in the same time illuminating, in the same time clear, is that clarity and that illumination becomes very, very subtle. And then we see what otherwise is not possible to see. What is it that we see? We see actually the nature of phenomena. Okay? In our normal everyday life, when our mind is scattered, there is no silence, no real illumination there. What we see actually is just the differences. We see differences. Okay? We see differences among the objects of our senses, you know, and we are experts in those differences. In what way this thing differs from that thing, you know, the whole science is about that. But here we are actually able to see what is the same in all phenomena we experience, you know, and that is the true nature of phenomena. The true nature of phenomena is the same. You know? So that realization is what we call actually prajna, or wisdom in Buddhism. This is how wisdom arises. Okay. So once our mind is very stable and very, very silent, and once the silence and illumination are equal, are simultaneously present, then we are able actually to see and to understand the nature of reality, the nature of phenomena. And we are also one of those phenomena, so we are able to understand ourselves as well. You know, so simultaneous presence of silence and illumination could be described as a surface of the lake or any water, which is completely still. And once it's completely still, or only once it is completely still, it reflects its surrounding clearly as it is. You know, as soon as this water there are ripples on it, it doesn't reflect. Well, it reflects, but it distorts the reflection. So we don't really see what is out there. And that's our usual situation. That's our starting point. We don't really see clearly. Our vision is somehow distorted. What we see is well, our own understanding of what things are. So we think that we know how things are, but what we know and what things really are is not really matched, you know. So that is the very short description of a silent, well, the meaning of silence and illumination, and actually the purpose of using the method. Because when we see the nature of those phenomena, and I said earlier that is equal to wisdom arising, that wisdom always brings very spontaneously and naturally compassion as well. So whenever there is a wisdom, there is a compassion there as well. So there is no really wisdom without a compassion, and compassion without a wisdom. If it is true wisdom, there is always compassion there. If it is a true compassion, there is always wisdom there. Okay, so now the question is how we apply this method in our everyday life. The first thing I think is important to know is that in Chan there is no this duality, you know, between spiritual life on the one side and secular or worldly life on another side. Okay, so there is no real distinction between the two, and that is a result of principle of non-duality, which is the main principle in Chan. And what that actually means is that practice is our whole life, and our whole life is practice. There is no really difference between the two. Once we understand what practice is, and once we use the practice in our daily life. So I hope I'm not going too fast over all of this. Saying that, how we actually use the method in our daily life. We are using it by simply with our whole being doing whatever we are doing at a particular moment. Okay, then we are, in other words, when we are walking, we know we are walking, or we could say we just walk. When we are eating, we are just eating. When we are working, we are just working. So this is also the principle of non-duality present in the very practice. When we don't separate ourselves in what we do, not separating ourselves in a sense of doing something and being absent-minded, being with the mind somewhere else, okay? Or being goal-oriented, thinking about the result of what we are doing and not being with what we are doing. Okay, so this is how we approach practice in a daily life. And of course, there are simple things which we do, which is somehow easier for to be used in the way I just described. And there are a complex situation which are a little bit more difficult. If somebody's work is complex, it includes the task which are complex, includes conversation with other people and so on. Then the practice itself is more demanding, but it is essential to understand the very principle of the practice. And the principle is that approaching or having the attitude of not separating ourselves from what we do actually means that we are in the same time letting go of everything which is not necessary to be there. Okay, letting go of all what is extra or superfluous, or I don't know exactly the English word, something which is extra, which is not necessary to be there, because precisely those things which we add to whatever we are doing is what obstructs our work, and it obstructs also our mind in general. And this is a heavy practice with a goal on mind. This is a practice with a fear of outcome. How this, what other people will say about what we do, whether we fulfill their expectations or whether we don't fulfill their expectation. This nervousness, which is sometimes present when we are doing something, is what I call extra. What doesn't need to be there. So, in that sense, when we think about the practice in daily life, practice is not really making our normal situation even more complex, adding the practice on the top of our work. Okay, that would be mistaken view. Actually, the practice means that from what we normally do, we take away everything which is not necessary and which obstructs actually what we do, and the quality of what we do, outcome of what we do. I think that's very, very important to understand, because if we understand practice like that, then we are very clear that by practicing in daily life, our life becomes more simple and more free in the same time. And the result of whatever we do is much better than otherwise would be. Okay? Is that clear? All right. Okay, I think that's very important to understand. So practicing actually means simplifying our life situation in general. And if we really apply the principles, it doesn't include only what we are doing at a particular times, but it extends to other area of our life. Okay, like simplifying the space in which we live. Not letting it be too cluttered with unnecessary things, which are constantly reminding us of the past or whatever, So we create an environment in which we can really cultivate the simplicity and the presence of mind. So I think that very important area of practice in everyday life is human relationship. I think that's the most critical, actually, area in our life in general. Relationships with people, the quality of the relationship which we have with others. That is extremely important, and that's the great challenge actually in our practice. So we have to take special attention to those relationships in order to make them harmonious and flowing, not being stuck and not being in opposition and not being in disharmony with each other. So especially important in that sense is the relationship with the people who are closest to us, the family members and then the friends and so on. Because although we call these people the closest to us, that doesn't mean that relationship are the best. So this is a very important issue actually. Sorry, because our life really depends on the quality of those relationships. And using the method of silent illumination, we realize that we don't exist on our own. We don't exist separately. That we exist in a very interrelated way with others. And there is no really us without others. Through others, we know ourselves. Through that interaction, we know ourselves. And so we either grow together in a harmony or we creating chaos for everyone. So out of that understanding comes the understanding that if we are doing good to others, we are also doing good to ourselves. And the opposite, if we create troubles for others, we are actually creating troubles for ourselves as well. So how we actually practice in relation to other people. So this is what I just mentioned is like a basic understanding of relationship we have with others. But we should be especially attentive and approach others knowing that their happiness is our happiness as well. And we should be very clearly aware that egocentric attitude and thinking only on ourselves, behaving selfishly, not taking the feelings of others in consideration, is all this kind of behavior is really leading to more chaos and more suffering for others as for us as well. So it's very important to recognize, and then instead of being egocentric, being oriented only on ourselves and looking everything through our own interests, we have to open our mind, have to relax, open our mind, become aware of others and needs of others, and then see in what way we can help them, and in that way actually create going well with others and creating a harmonious relationship with others. This is of extreme importance, and as a practitioners, we actually need to create the web of good relationship around ourselves. We have to create peace with the world. Jokingly, other day I said that we should include even politicians in that. in that harmonious relationship. When we relate to others, we should be able to listen very carefully what they have to say. We should hear them. We should hear others. It is very important. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to be heard. But I'm sure you know when you meet with someone and then some person starts to talk, at that very moment our mind goes off, you know, with a word or a sentence or something from what other people have said, and then we don't listen anymore, you know. We are thinking about it, agreeing or disagreeing or whatever. But there is no this attentiveness. There is no this careful listening, really experiencing the other person and seeing what other person has to say, how the other person feels. You know, that's by itself is a healing process for both parties. For both parties, if you are listening very carefully, that's how our mind becomes very silent and very clear at the same time of what other person is saying. So in that way, we can go even beyond the words of what other people are saying and seeing them in the light which is normally not possible to see them, and understand them much more deeply than otherwise would be possible to understand them. And then, of course, you know, we won't react to what other person is saying with a disagreement or with a dislike or anything, but we will be creative in that, not reactive, but creative in that relationship. You know, saying or doing what will actually help the other person and what will improve the relationship. And that's how we grow together. That's how we grow together. And that's what makes our practice. You know, practice is not just sitting in meditation in isolation in your room or somewhere secluded, you know. But the practice is something which is done in the midst of life, you know, in the midst of sometimes very conflicting, you know, situation. That's where we have to bring our practice and give the best of ourselves to others, if we want others to give the best of themselves to us. Okay, so it's a very, you know, mutually dependent situation, and that's again non-duality of Chan, not really being different, the self and others. You know, there is no real difference between the self and others. If we are aware of that, that would completely change the way we relate to others and to ourselves, for that matter, as well. You know, so yes, practicing in this way, we can actually see how deeply this interdependence of us and others goes, you know, and being very silent and being very aware, we can see how we actually co-arise in our experience together with others, and that is very important aspect of our practice. You know, seeing this interdependence. There is a saying in Buddhism, you know, seeing this interdependence is seeing the Dharma, because that's what Dharma really is an interbeing, as Master Thich Nhat Hanh is called it. And seeing the Dharma is seeing the Buddha. You know, so this is where silent illumination are leading us. And this is how we can, this principle of silent illumination, how we can apply those principles in everyday life in generally, but especially to relationship with the other people. But it extends to the other beings as well. You know, we relate to animals also with care and with the loving kindness and to the nature in general. You know, we are part of this nature. You know, we are not just, it's not that we are just not separate from others. We are not separate from other beings, and we are not separate from the nature itself. You know, so this is a vision which silent illumination gives to us. You know, and it is helping us living in accordance with this vision. And living in accordance with this vision is living free from vexations, free from suffering, and also helping others to be free from vexation and free from suffering. You know, practicing in daily life, we realize that our life actually consists of small things. It consists of, it doesn't consist of our big ambitions and our big plans. What is it that we want really to achieve in our life and so on. It consists of everyday small things which are happening from moment to moment. So being aware of it is being aware that the fabric of our life is precisely those moments, ordinary moments in our life. And practice there means that we give our whole attention to those moments and to those small things of which our life consists of. And there we can understand actually both. We can understand those small things, their nature, their uniqueness, their unrepeatableness, if I can say so in English, and also we understand ourselves. And that is the practice of Chan in the daily life. I can continue in this way, but I think that somehow this summarizes what I consider to be silent illumination as a method on one hand, and how to really apply those methods in our everyday life. What are the benefits of applying the methods in our everyday life? What is the most critical actually practice, and that is, as I said, relationship among the people, and what is the outcome of practice really for us and for others as well. So I will end my talk here. So thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any question, I would be very happy to answer, if I could.
When I register to meditation session, I'm supposed to check what kind of methods I'm using. And I always leave silent illumination unchecked, because basically, in all fairness, I cannot say about myself that I practice silent illumination. It's like in Diamond Sutra, there is written that there is no such dharma as anuttara samyak sambodhi. So likewise, I have a feeling that I cannot touch, I cannot feel, I cannot conceptually grasp what is silent illumination. The most I can do is to prepare myself to have this state of mind. So maximum I can say about it that it is a state of mind, but it is inexpressible itself. You cannot express what is silent illumination. You can just only reflect whatever is around you without abstractions at best. That's just what I can say about it.
Thank you for your question. Well, this is a very good question, actually, because as I said at the beginning, silent illumination is the simplest method of all. But that's precisely where difficulties arises, because our minds are not so simple. Our minds are complex. And that's why it's difficult to approach silent illumination. It's difficult to use the method if our mind is not in a also relatively simple state. And when I say simple state, I mean mind which is collected, mind which is relatively calm, and mind which is present. Okay, so for that reason, before using silent illumination as a method, we use other methods. We relax our bodies, and we are collecting our minds through the methods like counting the breath or following the breath, or there are many other methods which can be used for that purpose. But once our mind is relatively collected, then we can start using silent illumination in what is usually considered to be its first stage, and that is just sitting. And there we can start using the principle of silent illumination in relation to what we experience when we are just sitting. So first of all, we start with a very small field. Okay, we don't open our mind to all the senses, as I said earlier. Okay, but we use the small field. We could say that we give parameters to our awareness, or that it is like a concentrated awareness, because it's not a one-pointness. We just know that we are sitting. And then our mind, as it usually is, becomes reactive, with the grasping and rejecting. Oh, I like these pleasant sensations now, I want to keep it, okay? Or I dislike this unpleasant sensation, I want to get rid of it. So we are actually seeing our mind at work. And then we realize that in the way our mind works in relation to experiences, we become conditioned, okay? We become conditioned, we become moved by those things. Our mind is not really silent. There is a noise present in our mind. And then we let go of this reactivity. We start to treat pleasant and unpleasant sensation when they arise equally, neither grasping at them, not rejecting them, but simply allowing them to come and to go. And that's how the silence arises in our mind. In the same time, we are clearly aware of everything which is there. And that's how illumination comes in. When mind and body becomes unified, then actually silence and illumination are simultaneous at that point. And then we can actually observe our experience without interfering with it. Okay, without interfering with it. Without, what does it mean interfering? How do we interfere? Well, grasping and rejecting, having strategies about how to get something or get rid of something, so this is all the noise in the mind, and that's how we actually start to understand and start to experience the silent illumination. So yes, it's not, I understand why are you not checking this what method you are using, but there is a way to move in that direction and really start using silent illumination. Okay. Does that answer your question? Okay. Thank you.
My method of is silent illumination, and I had that high idea what silent illumination is about. But I had to get rid of that first in order to do silent illumination, which is meeting the moment, right, as it is. That's the motivation behind it. And so I do try to apply in daily life effortlessly as a result of my practice, which is sitting, right? If I don't do that first, then it's not going to work out. But sometimes, I become a little detached from the ordinary layer of consciousness in which we all interact, through language, conversation. So, and I can see that others perceive me as a creep.
As a
creep. As strange, weird. What I am perceived. There, when I see that, I'm perceived. So I come down to the ordinary layer of consciousness, which is mainstream consciousness. I don't do this voluntarily. It comes as a result of the practice. So I panic myself sometimes. So how far can I go, right? How far? Because I could still be perceived, what is this guy? So that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your question. Well, when we use silent illumination, we don't really detach from others. We don't detach from situations. We don't act weird, in a sense, right? To use your word, your description, because there is nothing unnatural in silent illumination. It's not a practice of isolation. This is not a practice of ignoring others or ignoring situation in which we find ourselves. Silent illumination is about non-duality, simplicity, and immediacy. Being fully present in situation, and at the same time being silenced, enable us to act appropriately to the situation, to do exactly what needs to be done. If we need to greet someone, we greet someone. Okay. If whatever situation requires from us to do at that particular point, this is what we are doing. And that is not detachment. Detachment could be misunderstood. Detachment means that we are not attached to what we experience. That's the one understanding of it. But that doesn't mean that we are not in a relation to what we experience. Okay? So detachment have another meaning, alienating ourselves from what we experience. And that's not a silent illumination. Okay? It's clear? Yeah. So if that is happening in our practice, then we have to change that. We have to change that. And seeing that not being attached doesn't mean being alienated. Quite the contrary. We become very intimate, with the situation, because there is no separation between us and whatever we are facing, and therefore our mind is alive, very much alive and present, and functions appropriately to the very situation in which it finds itself. In a context of practice, and in order not to be attached what appears, we might go into that extreme, like I move myself away. And there is an ancient formula I sometimes tell people to use when they practice, if they are overwhelmed by some emotions or something which appears. And it goes something like, I'm not that. That is not me. I don't own that. That doesn't own me. All right. In that way, it's like we detached from that phenomenon. But that detachment doesn't mean ignoring the phenomenon, doesn't mean not staying in contact with it. But what it means is that we don't project ourselves into it. Okay, so the phenomena becomes free from our interference, our negative interference, so to say. And therefore we can see it in the true light. Okay.
Therefore, according to what it said, the detachment felt is kind of an initial experience.
Inertial.
Initial, a beginning.
Initial. Okay.
Initial experience. Yeah. And then there is this, what you're saying,
okay.
Right? But I guess I'm not there yet.
Okay.
In that sense,
yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I should not, I guess, avoid that stage, initial stage. Go a little farther, and then embrace that, and still let it go, right? The next thing. Is that a good sense of it?
Yeah. Well, it's important to understand, what is the meaning of not being attached and detachment in those two senses I just explained.
Oh, okay, yes.
And then if we need temporarily, to detach ourselves because we can't deal with some difficult issue, that's fine. But that's not the final solution. We have to face a difficult situation, an overwhelming situation as well, and learn how to deal with them skillfully.
Yeah. Well, there is the detachment that comes as a result of defense mechanism that the mind does. But this detachment is the one that comes as a result of meditation. Right? It's different.
Okay.
Right. The one that comes unconsciously, let's say, I have no power over it. It's a defense mechanism, right? I just detach, but there's no self-growth. There is no self-awareness there. It just comes. But this one, the other one, the kind of detachment that I am experiencing is more of, it's just there, it happens.
Anyway, then you see, that there is another step you have to do, you do the other step.
Yes, in that sense, I can, receive that input.
When you're saying that the first way illuminate a small area, then increase it, can I think about why do the silent illumination is like a light? It's like a light on a circle. I illuminate that one area, just that part, let it be there, and just like a light to illuminate that area, whatever is presented there, my mind is there, just see it, don't be moved by it, just like light, shine upon it. That is my understanding for now. Is that what we should do when we do the silent illumination?
Okay. Okay, thank you. Well, illumination really means being aware of, knowing directly, feeling something in its entirety, and it should not be confused with our usual way of understanding those terms, especially knowing, okay, and illuminating, because we think that we illuminate something once we understand it, once we understand its characteristic, once we understand its functioning, you know. So once we, you know, you see the tree and you illuminate tree by giving the name to that tree, by understanding to what family of trees it belongs, by knowing something about that tree. So it seems to us as an illumination. We illuminated that object. But in the context of silent illumination, that's far away from that. You know, illumination means simply knowing without giving it name, without thinking about it, without analyzing, without describing, without any conceptualizing, without any of those mental constructs and operation. It's simply pure knowing, okay? Pure knowing, and that's very important to understand.
Can you have silence without illuminating? Because I think I've experienced that in the retreats where the mind opens, I can see behind my back and I can't feel the body. But then I realize now when you explain the illumination that I haven't illuminated anything, that I got attached to that feeling of silence.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's true. It's true. You know, the silence and illumination are not always in balance. Actually, we have to learn to balance them out. No, we have to learn to make them simultaneously present. There is a normal tendency for us going into the silence, you know, into the silence and not illuminating at all. And there is also a tendency to go towards illumination. So then that tendency is present. Actually, our mind becomes agitated. Illuminating means having an agitated mind. You know, if that illumination is not a pure knowing balanced with silence, you know, and also silence becomes like a, you know, sitting in a, as Shifu used to say, often sitting in a dark cave on a dark side of the mountain, or a stone being on the bottom of the well, you know. So nothing is happening there. We are fine, we are okay, you know. We are in peace, but nothing is. It's a dead silence, you know. It's not alive. There is no potential there, you know. So for that reason, we have to balance the silence and illumination. And in practice is balance, you know, precisely with applying these principles, not reacting to what we experience, and in the same time knowing very clearly whether our mind is reacting or not reacting, knowing very clearly to what our mind is reacting or not reacting. So that's how they, and if we go towards the silence, then we illuminate that silence. We should be very clear that we are silent. Okay? Very clear that we have a thoughts or that we don't have a thoughts. That's the clarity. So the illuminating doesn't mean necessarily illuminating something. Because when you are silent, there is nothing there particularly to illuminate, but you illuminate that very silence. You know that you are silent, not just completely being lost in the silence without knowing where you are. Okay.
Thank you, Zarko. I'm not sure if this is a good question or not. It's definitely something I'm curious about. So maybe feel free to answer it or let it not be answered. But I started, when I started meditating, I was 23, 24 years old. And my attitude was, going to meditate. I know I've tried it before and it resonates with me. I like it. You know, it makes me feel a little more peaceful, calm. And when I go on the cushion and it would feel good, and I get off the cushion, I go, thank God that's over. Now I can get on with my life. And there was a really big separation between meditation and the rest of my life. It was like two different worlds for me. And gradually, I realized it's not two different worlds. But it took me 10 years to realize off the cushion, on the cushion or off the cushion, it's all practice. It's, you know, it's not like, I was so excited when I finished meditating early on for probably years or something, like, oh, that's over. I can go watch a movie, go have fun. I can do this. I don't have to do that. And then after a while, I felt like, no, I should watch my mind. I should relax, try and apply this off the cushion. And it literally, I remember feeling like it was very gradual, but it was like, I remember also being on a retreat with Shifu, and I was sweeping in the Chan hall, and he was at the far end of the Chan hall, and I'm sweeping, and he looked at me, and I looked at him like, yeah, I'm practicing here. This is practicing here. I'm working here. And it was a really good feeling. My question is, how long from your experience does it take people to realize there's practice on the cushion, and you get off the cushion and you're still practicing, you get off the cushion, and then people realize it's all practice. It's your whole life is practice, and it's not a separation of church and state, so to speak. It's not this sharp separation. It's just a ordinary, just you're meditating. Okay, you get up, you do this. It's not like you're meditating. That was sacred. I did that. Now I'm going to go have my. Does it take people a long time from your experience? You can answer or not answer. I'm more just curious.
Thank you, Bob, for this question. That's very individual. You know, it depends on many things. Some people are getting it faster, you know, sooner, and some people are getting it later. You know, but it doesn't matter. What is important eventually is to understand that fact. You know, because meditation is not a separate activity. You know, meditation is not one activity among many other activities, because in meditation we cultivate the mind, and mind is something we use in all areas of our life. Therefore, we can't really separate the two. Okay, but formal meditation is simply not enough. Not enough in order, you know, for change the way we relate to different areas of our life. For that reason, we have to extend the practice from stillness into the movement, and simply, you know, as I said at the beginning, the life becomes the practice becomes the life. No really difference between the two. You know, so and once we understand that practice is actually experience of simplicity and freedom, there is no alternative to that, really. So yes, it's you know, every place in which we find ourselves is a place of practice. Doesn't matter, you know. There is no, as you say, sacred and not sacred places. There is many stories in Chan tradition about this, you know. Yes, every place is a place for practice. But in the same time, we need what we consider sacred places. We need CMC here. You know, we need a place in which we come and learn about the practice, you know, and learn how to apply practice to other places. But once we do that, every place becomes the place of our practice, wherever we are.
Hello, Master. I also have a question about what is clearly illumination. So can you please give us a daily example for clearly illumination example? Clearly illumination. What?
Clear
Yeah,
illumination.
yeah. What is clear illumination example in daily life?
Oh.
Okay, thank you.
Well, clear illumination is when we don't impose our own ideas of whatever we are illuminating. Okay, so it is like letting the objects of our illumination present itself to us. Okay, we don't jump immediately. Oh, I know what it is. You know, and this is what we do. We do with people also. Oh, I know that person. And immediately there is a view, and there is a attitude, and there is a emotion arising. You know, everything. So we either avoid that person if we consider that it's not nice person, or if it is friend, we are very happy to meet that person. Okay, but so this is when we react to various life situations with already preconceived ideas, with a deeply rooted pattern of like and dislike, and thinking that we know everything, what everything is. Okay, but illumination is a situation in which we tell ourselves we don't have a clue what these things are and who these people are. You know, you meet a person and you had some unpleasant experience with that person a long time ago, and when you see the person, what comes to your mind is an unpleasant experience. But in the meantime, that person, you know, could become awakened, could change completely. So, you know, this is having a fixed views, having this fixed pattern of behavior in relation to reality, which is flowing and changing all the time. That can't bring anything else but suffering. Okay, so illumination means not knowing and then knowing without you know, attempts to describe, categorize, whatever. So we simply allow that to present to ourselves. Okay, you meet someone with whom you have an unpleasant sensation or experience, and then you tell yourself, "Wow, no, is that the same person?" So let's see, you know. And what's very interesting is if you approach that person with that attitude, you actually help that person to change that very moment, even if nothing happened in the life of that person, right? So that's very, very interesting, you know, very, very interesting. Thank you for your question.